Welcome to Episode 8, the grand finale of the Calm Competitor miniseries. Today, we look at the immediate aftermath of your performance and why the way you reflect on an event actually determines what your brain chooses to remember about it. The mistake you can't afford to ignore. Picture this. The final buzzer sounds, or the test packet lands face down on your desk. The moment you've been building toward, weeks of practice, nights of studying, all of it, is suddenly past tense. And what do? Most people do one of two things. They replay what went wrong, turning it over and over like a stone that cuts every time. Or they shove the whole thing somewhere out of view and try to get on with things. Neither of those is neutral. Both of them are costing you something you can't see yet. Because buried inside every high-pressure performance, whether your heart was pounding at tip-off or whether your pen ran out of ink in the middle of Section 2, there is information. Real, retrievable, mechanically specific information about how your brain and body actually function under pressure. And right now, within hours after any performance, that information is accessible. Later, it won't be. The question isn't whether you learn from your experiences. The question is whether you retrieve what your nervous system actually recorded, or whether you retrieve the story you tell yourself about what happened instead. Most people, when they think about learning from mistakes, picture something intuitive. You do something, it doesn't work. You notice it didn't work. You do it differently next time. Experience as teacher. Simple, obvious, and honestly, not wrong. That version of learning is real. You've done it your whole life. The first time you misjudged the timing on a jump shot and it bricked off the front of the rim, some part of your brain logged that and adjusted the next attempt. But there's an assumption buried in that model. The assumption is that you see your performance the way it actually was. You don't. Not without doing something deliberate about it. The memory you form of a high-stakes event is not a recording. It's an interpretation, assembled in real time by a brain that was also managing cortisol and adrenaline and social pressure and fear of failure, all of which quietly edit the record as it's being written. The anxious brain doesn't just react to the environment, it alters what it encodes about the environment. You remember the things that confirmed your fear. You forget, or minimize, the things that contradict it. You walk away holding a version of events shaped by your emotional state, and that version can be very, very wrong about the specifics. The athlete who played well but made one visible mistake often remembers a bad game. The student who earned a B+ but blanked on 2 questions often feels like the exam went poorly. This isn't weakness. This is the architecture of stress-affected memory. It almost works as a learning system. Almost. Here's where it breaks. Over the last 3 decades, researchers studying how stress hormones interact with memory have documented something that keeps showing up across labs and across populations. Sonia Lupien at the Université de Montréal, whose work synthesized years of cortisol research, put it plainly. Stress doesn't just intensify emotion during an event. It selectively warps which elements of an event the brain stores with high fidelity. When you're under genuine pressure, your brain's attention system narrows. Cortisol, the hormone your body releases under stress, produced in the adrenal glands, those 2 small structures that sit atop your kidneys, tells your attention to focus on threat-relevant information. Your visual system literally narrows its processing window. Your working memory, the mental scratch pad you use to track multiple things at once, shrinks. Things in your peripheral awareness, including the correct sequences, the good decisions, the moments where your preparation actually held, those don't get the same neural resources as the thing that went wrong. Which means, after a high-stakes performance, your emotional memory and your factual memory are not aligned. You remember how it felt more accurately than you remember what actually happened. And when you try to learn from the experience, when you think back and ask yourself, what should I do differently? You're often revising based on a distorted account. This is not fixable by trying harder. It's not a character flaw you can discipline your way out of. It is a structural feature of how stressed nervous systems encode events. And it points to a real problem. If the record is corrupted at the point of storage, the lesson you draw from it might be solving a problem you didn't actually have. So let's look at what's actually happening in the brain during and after a performance, and why a specific practice, post-event reflection done with intention, changes the outcome. Your nervous system encodes experiences in layers. There is the emotional layer, anchored in a structure called the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, buried deep in the temporal lobe. It fires during fear, excitement, and perceived threat. When the amygdala is activated, it tags the experience as important, which is why you remember exactly where you were when something scary or thrilling happened. But the amygdala doesn't encode sequence. It doesn't care about what came before or after. It captures the emotional weight of the moment, not the logical structure of what occurred. Then there's the factual layer, encoded primarily in a region called the hippocampus, a curved structure that looks almost like a seahorse tucked into the medial temporal lobe. The hippocampus handles declarative memory, the kind of memory that can be talked about, recalled in sequence, compared against other memories. The hippocampus can be suppressed by high cortisol. Under serious stress, the amygdala and the hippocampus are running in something like competition. The more the amygdala fires, the less accurately the hippocampus captures the experience. This is why two parts of the same performance can feel absolutely vivid and completely foggy at the same time. The moment you miss the shot in the fourth quarter, visceral, present, like it happened an hour ago. The 17 shots you made in quarters 1 through 3, hazy, not quite there, hard to locate in your own memory. The amygdala encoded the threat. The hippocampus was partially shut out. Now here's what changes when you conduct a deliberate post-performance reflection, and why the timing matters enormously. Memory consolidation, the process by which short-term experiences become stable long-term memories, is not instantaneous. After an event, your hippocampus enters a window of active consolidation, replaying the event, threading it into existing memory structures, determining what gets stored with high resolution and what degrades. This window is longest within the first few hours after the event and begins to close as you sleep. Within that window, you can influence what gets consolidated, not by wishful thinking, by deliberate, structured retrieval. When you systematically walk back through a performance, not to judge yourself, but to inventory it, you are asking your hippocampus to locate and stabilize memories that might otherwise be overshadowed by the amygdala's version. You are, in a real neurological sense, strengthening the factual record before it degrades. A specific technique reinforces this. Sports psychologists call it the performance review, and its structure matters. You move through the event in sequence. You note what you intended, what actually happened, and the gap between the two. You do this without emotional evaluation of whether you are good or bad, only descriptive evaluation of whether the mechanism worked. You run this process for negative moments and positive moments with equal weight. That last part is not just fairness, it's mechanically necessary. If you only review errors, you are feeding your consolidation window a skewed sample, which means you're selectively reinforcing the amygdala's threat-encoded memories over the hippocampus's factual record. You're finishing the job the stress started, narrowing your account of what happened to the things that went wrong. By retrieving positive instances with the same deliberate attention, you are giving the hippocampus equal processing resources. You are literally changing which memories survive consolidation at full fidelity. And here's what emerges from that. Two athletes go through the same performance. Both had a hard first half and a stronger second half. One rehearses the failure, falls asleep with the error on loop, wakes up with a general sense of inadequacy, and in the next game, unconsciously avoids the situation where the error occurred because the threat memory is so strong. The other reviews the whole arc, notes the poor decision in the first half, names the specific condition that triggered it, notes what changed in the second half that allowed recovery, writes it down, falls asleep having consolidated both the failure and the adaptation, wakes up not just remembering a game, but holding a procedure. The difference isn't mental toughness, it's what information survived consolidation. This scales beyond sport. A student who spends 2 hours after a difficult exam replaying the questions they blanked on is not studying. They are selectively reinforcing threat-encoded memories, while the accurate record of everything they did understand quietly degrades. A student who systematically walks through the exam. What did I know? What did I not know? Why did I not know it? What was the gap? Is giving their hippocampus work to do that will actually improve the next performance. You've been in the locker room after a loss, or at your desk after the test got handed back. The weight of it is specific. It sits between your shoulders and behind your sternum, that particular tired that isn't quite physical. You want to go home, lie down, not think about it. That feeling is real. It doesn't need to be argued with, but somewhere in the back of your mind, or maybe somewhere more specific than that, somewhere in a seahorse-shaped structure in your temporal lobe, there is a window, open now, starting to close, and inside it, the whole event still available. Not just the miss, not just the blank question, not just the thing that went wrong, but the plays that worked, the sections you moved through without hesitation, the moment in the third period when you trusted something and it held. Those memories don't disappear, but if no one retrieves them deliberately, if no structure is offered to the hippocampus to pull them up and replay them and thread them into what you already know, they get encoded with less resolution. They fade toward background, and the miss stays sharp. So the question isn't whether you replay the game. You will. The question is whether what you replay is the full thing, held with clarity, or just the part that hurt the most. What you choose to look at tonight shapes what you'll be able to see next time. By mastering post-event reflection, you've completed your toolkit for turning pressure into power and mistakes into fuel. Thank you for joining us on this 8-part journey through the calm competitor. Now step out there, take a breath, and take control of your narrative.